So when I was really preparing for this discussion, I considered these skills in terms of South Africa being one of the countries that is still developing. And really, when I thought of the skills that are required, I thought of the skills that will enable our graduates to navigate the changing dynamics of job market first, and the other important aspect being able to contribute to the economic growth. And the first skill that I have on my list here, it is STEMI or STEM skills. And this is very important. And obviously the reason we are here is because of that. Crucial for driving innovation and economic growth in so many ways. And we spoke about it, I think, since yesterday. The technologies that are related to the fourth industrial revolution in so many other countries now are talking about and the fifth industrial revolution, coding, data analysis, robotics, artificial intelligence, which can really provide a competitive edge. But the most important question, it actually goes back to all the other questions I asked yesterday, that unless our learners understand, yes, we hear about all these technologies, but how do we even use them? How do they help me to contribute to economic growth? Because sometimes we begin to say things or talk things, develop solutions at a very higher level without people really understanding that, yes, there's robotics, but how do you really, if you can go back, maybe let me give you an assignment. Let me give everyone an assignment to go back home and ask the learners that we are teaching, or even the teachers that are supposed to be teaching this technical related subject. Yes, we're saying that the government or the Department of Basic Education wants to introduce robotics, coding in our schools. Do they even know how does that relate to solving the problems of our country? If you are saying that we are doing robotics, yes, the learners should know robotics, the learners should know how to code. That gray area is that, how does that, can we show them why is it important? Because that is what I actually think, that we are pitching things at a very higher level, whereby people don't even understand that, yes, I see all these skills. I mean, they are, I mean, everywhere you go, they talk about the fourth industrial revolution, but how does that person somewhere in the rural area without all these technologies relate to that and see that actually helping them on their daily basis? It is a challenge for all of us that we really need to break it down to that level. The other one, it is critical thinking and problem solving. And many of us here will really agree that South Africa is experiencing too many challenges. And we need people, human beings, that will be critical thinkers to develop solutions, not for the sake of developing solutions, to develop solutions that will address our problems in South Africa. And really, when we begin to do that, we actually see that the challenge of the very high unemployment rate is somehow addressed, because people will not go into entrepreneurship for the sake of making money, making profit. They're going to actually want to be entrepreneurs because they are solving real challenges, urgent challenges in their societies. And when we begin to really change that mindset to say that maybe we need to look into the problems, what challenges are we experiencing in our societies, and turn those into our businesses. That speaks about the third one, which is really the entrepreneurial skills that is required. But it should not, we cannot also just pitch it at that level, that we need entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs to do what? To just make profit. If you're saying that people are becoming entrepreneurs, what problems are they solving? Because every single time, if one is solving a problem, there is no way that they're going to wake up and they are actually struggling to find a job. So I think that is important, that we begin to communicate things at that level. That entrepreneurial mindset It's not just so you are an entrepreneur or you are making money. Are you really solving problems? Because really, if you are solving a problem, that becomes a sustainable solution, right? That will become a sustainable business that one can actually do in their careers or on their journey of becoming. Communication and collaboration, and we cannot work in silos. And I think this is one thing that is happening in our country. And I always say that we have universities that are researchers within universities that are doing amazing work. Most of this work end up in our dissertations, in our libraries. And most of this work, when you read through this, some of these dissertations and theses, you actually see that these are business cases. If we can collaborate with the relevant stakeholders, people that share the same vision, you can actually translate that into business. Many businesses that will directly address the so high unemployment rate in South Africa. So it's important that we actually begin to destroy all these silos and begin to collaborate. And I think a classic example will be the reason why we are here. We've been talking about it, how there are so many challenges in the basic education, but we have universities that are actually there with solutions. Why don't we begin to collaborate? The learners that are coming from our basic education needs to go to universities. I was sharing this with someone earlier this morning to say that they were actually saying that they sometimes run program where they actually follow the students, the learners throughout their process, university and beyond university. And you find that some of them actually drop out or even change their career. Engineering, they will change a career and find something that is. And I actually said that in engineering, the first year of almost all the engineering careers or field, you are doing mathematics that is similar to grade 12. You are doing physics that is similar to what you have done in grade 12. Chemistry that is similar to what you have done in grade 12. But you find that students cannot cope with it. Yeah, this is something that you should have done a year ago in high school. So it is that we need to begin to collaborate and really basic education, higher education, let us work together. These silos are not helping us. In fact, at the end of the day, the learners that struggle for 12 years in the basic education, they come to the university and we still lose them because they cannot cope when they get there. The last one is green skills. We are in the world where there's a growing focus on sustainability and really protecting our environment. And doing that, thinking about the next generation that is coming after us. And it is that whatever solutions that we are developing, if you are an entrepreneur, is it really for the now gratification where you are getting the profit now and you are happy with that, or are you really thinking about the future? It cannot be sustainable if it is really destroying our environment. So we need to really begin, when we're thinking about solutions, we're thinking about being entrepreneurs and developing these solutions that are addressing our challenges in our societies. Let us think of solutions that are sustainable. Let us think of solutions that are really taking care of our environment. Let me stop there. And if you are following me, you will see that I did not touch on the technical aspect, because sometimes that comes later on. The engineering, the technicality, we need to get some of the basic things right before we can even get there. Thank you.
On a lot of things, Prof, that I was going to talk on, but maybe let's preface my presentation from earlier on when I engage in this topic. I think the future of work is going to be a transdisciplinary space. We are realizing that a lot of the processes that are human operated or done by humans themselves in the future are slowly being phased out. I don't know if you've seen these new fashion of restaurants where you go into the restaurant, you sit down and you press a couple of buttons, and then a bowl comes out on a turning still right in front of you, and you engage in your food. Now, that is technology at its finest. It's a great innovation, but those are jobs lost. There's no more the person that is going to take your order and going to go into the kitchen to get it or prepare it. It's all becoming automated. So as universities, we are sitting with this conundrum where we are in this existential crisis where we are also trying to define ourselves. Who are we in that world? Right? I'm probably informed by our current recalculation processes in our science faculty at Nelson Mandela University, where we are currently engaging these issues, and they are tough for us. So I think it stems back to my comment that we need to become comfortable with complexity, and we need to become comfortable with we don't know the answer, and taking that as an invitation as to how do we move forward. So in a world governed by AI, certain needs will fall away that a basic human could do. And so I'm linking to my colleague when she says we need critical thinkers, we need metacognitive thinkers. The educationalist will understand the concept of metacognitive thinking. It's going beyond just the simple context and applying those. We are going to need scientists who can work with AI, which will make the process much, much easier. I know AI is demonized because copying. We can copy, we can write a whole thesis. I wrote my friend's thesis title the other day into ChatGPT, and it generated all of our objectives. It generated all of our objectives, and I was like, in 10 to 15 seconds, all of our objectives of a study was there. And it was not a science study, it was on gender-based violence. And so more a health science related topic, and it generated it in 15 to 10 seconds. And so we need to think now, the playing field is now going to be questions. Can we ask the right questions? Because when we engage in research, we realize that a weak research question forms a weak research study. And so we are going to need to really get ingrained into our basic understandings of our STEM eyes to function on a more transdisciplinary level. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that is a good thing because it forwards us. Obviously, I am still of the notion in a developing country, I work with community engagement. I find that is a positive way of coming up with solutions, coupling that with indigenous knowledge, systems that we have at our disposal. It is challenging to be in a research field where you are competing with someone who is 10 years ahead of you in technology. Someone who can do what you take an entire year to do in a couple of months, colleagues. That is the type of sphere we find ourselves in as scientific researchers. For me, at a very early stage, I realized that, okay, I'm not going to be able to isolate 20 compounds because I don't have a UPHPLC MS connected to an NMR, and people in my field will understand that. But it's basically a one-step process that combines all of the single steps. Imagine there are 4 steps that I take, and all of them require interrogation and analysis. And someone in Germany can put one sample into one instrument that does all those 4 steps in 4 hours, where it takes me 3 weeks to 4 weeks to do. And so when you look at that scope, what is the value of my contribution? How is my contribution competitive? Because the NRF will want to know what makes your contribution competitive. What makes you an international voice in what it is you are trying to say or purport? And our indigenous knowledge systems grants us this invaluable opportunity where we alone have access to that system. The same plant all over the world is used differently by different groups. And this could be informed by geographical standing. This could be informed by the plant's responses to climate change. But you see that this is so amazing, and it's something at our disposal that we can use. I was recently at Oldenburg University celebrating our university's 25-year partnership in Germany. And one scientist made a comment where it was a sort of like a joke where he said, but you know what, Nehemiah, you guys have the landscape and we have the instruments. So there is also an opportunity then there for international collaborative partnerships that are valuable, that are not extractive, but that are there as supportive, that are there to assist and are there to engage in the rigorous, as we say, international conversation that science interrogation is. And obviously all of this, we are back, as my colleague says, all of this is on the backdrop of the Sustainable Development Goals. What do the Sustainable Development Goals mean to your individual context? And as we are going to start to break down what we want to do in jobs. So career advisors will need to start to say to students, if this is what you want to become, go and look what are the requirements for you to do that. Go and see how you make yourself more competitive to that. What are the transferable skills of someone who is a teacher? Where else can you use those skills? What are the transferable skills of a BSc graduate? Well, we know they can do a PGCE and become a teacher. We know that they can go into office management. We know that they can go into certain projects and work as a part of a managerial team. There are skills here. And if we think about innovation and we think about the future, we're going to start to grapple with that, because we know it's not every university BSc graduate that goes on to do an honors. There's only so much funding available for people to do that. So yeah, that's kind of my tidbit on that. I'll hand over to my colleague. Thank you.
Okay, right. Now it seems to be working. So parsimony is the order of the day. Right? So I'll try and be brief. I will make some very specific statements, right? And then we'll have a very fruitful discussion. So we are training people in a VUCA environment. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Some of the workspaces that we are training people for don't exist at the moment. Right? I'll give you some examples. Right? We never heard of a drone pilot a few years ago. Now that is a official job that you can train and do. Right? We never heard of professional gamers. People are now becoming professional gamers. Influencers. We never heard of influencers before. In my day, when I studied at university, we called them brand ambassadors or brand managers. Now they are called influencers. And these people have micro communities around them that they influence. I'll give you an example. Somebody like Mark Rober. Does anybody know who Mark Rober is? Mark Rober is a NASA scientist, engineer by training. Gave up the job and he runs a YouTube channel, teaching people science, doing it better than we could even do it. He makes only 12 videos a year that are so impactful. Right? The backyard scientist, they make videos that are so impactful. Right? Those jobs never existed. Right? Data scientist. We never heard of a data scientist. A privacy officer. We never had privacy officers. Now privacy is such a big thing in our communities, and it goes across all communities. Right? The technology is changing, fundamentally changing the way we as communities work. Now the question that is asked, it says that, envisage the future of work. I don't like that question. I don't like the word work. I think the word should be, how do we envisage entrepreneurial opportunities? It is entrepreneurial opportunities that come out of STEM. How long did it take China to get the atom bomb? Does anybody know how long it took China to get the atom bomb? They partnered with Russia for a while. Then the relationship broke up. After the Russians left, it took them 10 years They put all of their resources into what they wanted to do, and they did it. 10 years. And that is how they got the atomic bomb. They concentrated their resources in that space. So this question of how we are creating people for future work should be, how are we creating people for future entrepreneurial opportunities? Does anybody know the background of the CEO of Google? Where does he come from? No, say loud. Does anybody know where the CEO of Google comes from? From where? Yeah, Chennai, India, one of the BRICS countries, right? He saw an opportunity. And he's used his he used his set of circumstances, which we would call disadvantaged, right? I argue he calls it advantaged him, because he went into a space and he saw opportunities that nobody else saw. Which brings us to the issue of what type of people should we be creating. We should be creating people who are masters of their own technology arrangements. I'll repeat it again. Masters of their own technology arrangement. What does that require? It requires two fundamental things. Reading, a deep love for reading. Because the environment is constantly changing. If you don't read, you get left behind. And then you will think AI is going to take my job. Right? AI is only going to augment what we do better. Right? Artificial intelligence has no ability to have any original thought. And it will never come to that level, because the amount of data that is required to create original thought can only come from this human way, hot way, warm way, whatever you want to call it, right? Comes from us. So the technology is changing the types of jobs that we will do. It will not replace us in any way whatsoever. So we require two things: people who have the love for reading and the love for maths, or understanding maths. Next, we need to be training independently thoughtful young men and women. Now that's dangerous for us, for all of us sitting here, because they ask us very hard questions that we ourselves can't answer. Earlier on, somebody mentioned the fees must fall. You mentioned the fees must fall. There's a very nice dissertation from Durban University of Technology, where the student looked at how the fees must fall movement was totally driven by social media. It was a different way of communicating. Now we keep on saying that our students are disadvantaged. You know who I believe is disadvantaged? The people sitting here. We are disadvantaged because we come with our prejudices and biases about how technology should work, because he, as my teacher 10 years ago, called me crazy and I didn't understand mathematics. So I dislike mathematics because he told me that. So when I teach you and you and you, I dislike mathematics. I'm teaching you, I'm disadvantaging you because of that. I've got a victim mentality, and I'm moving that victim mentality down to the students, and they're moving it down, and so on and so forth. Maths is not hard. Do you know who makes it hard? We do. We say it is hard. The psychological approach, if you tell somebody they're stupid, what happens? They believe they're stupid. Guess what? We are tacitly doing that. We have to fundamentally change our operating system so we have that positive attitude. You can teach children programming without them touching a computer. You can. It is possible. It is happening. But we think we need devices. We need data. We need this. You know what we are creating? We are creating an environment of old technology with more money equals old, expensive, useless technology. What are we trying to do? We should be changing the way our students are thinking, not changing it. I'm sorry, I retract that statement. We should be encouraging them to think outside the coloring line, which we are not doing. We tell them color within the line. Right? Then the next thing is, since we are teaching them to coloring with the line, who is teaching the trainers? Who is doing that? We want to get the latest and greatest thinking to our students, but where are we getting our latest and greatest thinking from? Where is the continuous professional development for those persons? Would you go to a doctor who does not constantly update himself on the latest and greatest medical innovations in his field? You won't do that. But yet, for our schooling, we allow that to happen to our children. So how are we going to change that? What type of people will we create? Because as soon as we start creating this independently thoughtful persons, we are afraid. And we see that. There's the young man sitting right over there. He is resilient. He stood up in a community that is changing, in a country that is changing, in a society that is changing, and in a world where his competition for a job is not only one South African or the South African sitting here, it's everybody on this planet is competing for his job or the job that he wants to go for. Gone are the days when people would go and hire the person who is 2 streets down the way from him, or the province down the way, down. Now we hire people, we'll have a Skype interview and say, you are hired. Right? Work in your space. Get the product to me, get the plans to me, and we will take it from there. So we are working in an environment that has fundamentally changed. And we need people, both trainers and the future leaders, to think outside the box. Thank you.
Chairperson, and I'm also appreciating the powerful presentation from the panelists, and we've gained a lot from the presentation. But then as I'm listening, I'm asking myself as to how far are the universities ready with regards to offering accredited courses that we can enroll on, that will provide us with the skills that you have been talking about. Thank you.
What we called a MOOC, MOOC. It's a massive open online course. It is free to everybody. So about 3 years ago, we inherited a project from the DBE, and they wanted us to teach 890 teachers coding and robotic skills. And the lead on that project, Patricia, who's sitting right in the back, came up and says, how do we do this? You know, we've got all of this and we have to teach 800 and some odd students. So as the manager of the department, I made a conscious choice. Why only 800? Just open it to everybody. It's fundamentally different to what the university does, because this is open to the anybody sitting here can register for it, right? You get online support and face-to-face support, right? And what's nice about it, it starts a community. So that is already happening at universities. Basically, all universities are doing that. Now, everybody hears the word COVID and they think it's a swear word, right? COVID was a very nice thing. You know why? It took us out of our comfort zones. It really took us out of our comfort zones. We started seeing more potential and better ways of doing things. And that is increasingly happening at all universities and schools. For example, there are online schools. So universities are doing that. There are spaces in which you can fit in, where you can contribute. But even better than that, I openly challenge people sitting here. Come and do a master's or a PhD in the STEM field. We need champions, right? And who better than the people in the trenches? Come and set the agenda. This is your community. Come and set the agenda. How do you set the agenda? By doing the dissertation, by publishing that work. You set the agenda. So no more does it become somebody in a higher office. You are now setting the agenda and saying, in my space, this is what I want, and this is how I want it. No more is it a politician or a policy maker. So I encourage you all, come. She's the head of department. She'll get you all on a master's or PhD program. I'm a head of department. I will get you into a master's or PhD program. And we can make those changes, but it has to be evidence-based. It can't be opinion-based, and that we can do. Thank you.
Any follow-ups from fellow panelists?
And I think, I mean, the last part that you have just mentioned is very important. Let us begin to enroll for postgraduate studies and solve real problems. And you are the ones that really understand those problems within your schooling system, your communities. I spoke to someone earlier to say that that is where we suppose, that is where how we're supposed to be doing things. I think in the olden times, many people will agree that people were doing postgraduate studies, your masters, for the sake of doing a master's degree. But we are at the level where really you understand the challenges, turn that into a solution. It may not be implemented today, tomorrow, but let us begin to write about those problems, produce a dissertation, recommend solutions. Who knows, maybe then that will begin to influence the decision makers and policy makers. And the University of Johannesburg is ready for that. We have various short learning programs, especially in different fields, but let me talk about really the ones that are talking about directed to the fourth industrial revolution technologies. We have various short learning programs that it also goes back to that collaboration. You know, we have all this, we're presenting solutions that people may actually sit and say, oh, these are actually things that are far-fetched up there. How do we get there? Universities have been doing this for the longest time, but the people that are supposed to be benefiting from this do not even know that this is happening in South Africa. They think that these are things that are happening elsewhere in the world. So universities do have short learning programs. University of Johannesburg, we have such programs that can really begin to upskill people and really ensure that people are getting the skills that are required for today. I don't like for the what future work, no, for today.
I just wanted to make a closing comment, colleagues. I think it's important to look at this in the context of skills, right? Skills. What we are going to do is the same that Prof cautioned, that we are just going to create another program that's going to be null and void tomorrow because some new invention came along. So these skills, I noticed during our recurriculation skills process that these skills already exist in universities. We are not bringing in new people to teach this. There are researchers and people that are doing it on the ground within our institutions. What is data science but maths, some statistics, and computing science? That's a program that already exists. We've just called it data science now, right? A combination of coding. What is coding? But things that we have been doing, it's just we have more access. We have supercomputers now that can do bulks of data in days, right? So I think the focus should be on what are those skills. So identify those skills for yourself. Come and see these champions who are going to let you in those master's programs. I'll advocate for you. I'm not an HOD. But I'll advocate for you and find what the skills are that you require to push your message and your field forward, essentially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dorothy. When I hear you talking of universities, skills that are already in universities and master's degrees and stuff, I'm really worried about the ground, the grade R, the 5 to 7, the below 5 years. How much are you doing as universities to stimulate the communities? I understand UNISA is going far and beyond, trying to start robotics in communities and encouraging teachers and science centers to take it up. It's very difficult, it's a journey, scary to do robotics and coding. It's scary to code. How much are you doing to stimulate the ground? Thank you very much.
You know, we will move heaven and earth if it makes a difference. Right? What it requires is advocacy on both sides. The university can come and say, yes, we will do every and anything you want to. But the people on the ground, is that what they really want? That's the first question. Do they want to buy into this? That's the second question. The third question is, the teachers, are they comfortable? Right? I mean, when the coding and robotics curriculum was introduced, did anybody speak to any of the teachers? Did anybody get their input? I have to ask this question. I'm not part of this community. So I'm asking a very hard question. Did anybody come and speak to you all? There must be teachers sitting over here. Okay, so somebody said no. Okay, now we're sitting with this. So how do we make lemonade when we are given lemons? Now we've got this. So how do we make it work? We can either make it work begrudgingly and say, you know what, half-heartedly, so the children will also get that impression that this is not really what we want or what really should be happening. Or we can embrace it and say, okay, you know, instead of making lemonade here, we'll make lemon sauce. Think outside the box. Why are we not thinking outside the box? So Dorothy, you know, it depends on, people will only reciprocate with you as much as you reciprocate with them. Right? And one of the things I've learned, or what I've noticed, and I see this with my PhD students as well, right? I currently have a PhD candidate who comes from Lenasia. The guy is a teacher. He teaches maths in his school. And he's struggling because his children are not, he mentioned the quantile thing as well. It's some type of quantile school. And he was getting into all of that explanation to me. And I told him, listen, I'm an IT person. I'm not interested in that. I have to understand how you're going to help these children improve their mathematics. Right? So he turned and told me, well, you know what, I'll do this, I'll do that. I'll tell him, wait a minute, why don't we use social media? And I gave him a plan. This is what we will do. This is how we'll apply it in your school. And we'll test to see whether this approach works. But for this approach to work, we need a community of practice. So he actually wrote that up as a proposal, got accepted by the university. He went a step forward. He wrote it up as he's in the process of writing it up as a book chapter. It got he sent it off to the space. It got peer reviewed, and they said, "Hey, we like the idea in here." So now he's becoming the champion of that. It is not me. He's taking ownership of that because now it is his school. He's taking ownership and he wants to make it work because he has just as much to lose as the children do because he's now invested in it. So that is one approach. Thank you.
Donnie Heymans, World Robot Olympiad. Thank you very much for the panel discussion. Always inspiring and different perspectives, having one topic to discuss and different angles on the approach. I made a note when I saw the topic, and the first thing I wrote down was attitude. And I wrote it down because we always hear about the skills, soft skills for the future, essential skills, etc. And I wrote down attitude, and then I thought about it again, because the first place I use attitude myself is with my attitude, I'm trying to stay younger than I really am, number one. But I'd like your opinion on the role of attitude. Now, I'm sure some of what you've discussed fits in there somewhere, but the word itself has a really impactful place. And just perhaps elaborate from your perspectives with all your knowledge, just on that word, on the topic. Thank you.
Attitude, yes. I'm smiling because attitude has everything to do with it. And I will also give an example to say that you may be sitting there, we are discussing this. There are so many challenges. Someone might get out of here, even more discouraged to say that, South Africa is really going down. And someone can actually look at everything, hear everything, and say that, you know what, there are so many opportunities for me to make an impact. And I'm going to start with the little that I have in the small environment that I'm in. So the attitude, and that is the attitude to everything, the attitude to want to go a step further, the attitude to want to upskill yourself, reskill yourself as an individual. We can sit here the whole day and really tell you about the skills and all of that. But if you do not really make it or take it upon yourself to say that, you know what, I am changing my mindset, I'm going to do this, I want to do this, I'm going to win at doing this. Look at, we will sit here and really discuss the problems of this country. So attitude for me, it has everything to do with everything. And it begins there.
Yeah, do you want to go? Attitude, I think really it goes back to, I'm not gonna do anything I don't like, right? And so it's something ingrained in us. It is a feet dragging if you are doing something you don't like. And what I tried to highlight early on in my presentation, I don't know if I was at the end, nearing the end, but the Steve Biko quote of I write what I like. I apply that in my life. I do what I like. I teach what I like. So regardless of what it is that I need to go and teach or what it is I'm engaged to, I'm going to find a passion, that a positionality that excites me, that makes me interested in this topic, that's going to make me want to read more about it, to formulate a way to bring it forward. So definitely attitude is key, because students sense it from you. When you don't like maths, students know you don't like maths, right? When you don't like physics, they know. And by virtue of that, you are modeling a behavior. We must also think about what we model as teachers in education. The modeling of behavior that you model is perceived and it's taken up. Right? I had a teacher in primary school. I was the head boy, so head boys have certain privileges in the tuck shop and stuff. And so I was working in the tuck shop one Friday, and they were all teachers in the tuck shop. And he turned to me and he said to me, so Latolla, what do you want to become when you're older? And I said, you know what? I don't really like blood, so I don't want to be a doctor, but I think I want to be a scientist. And he smirked and he said, yeah, no, reach for the stars, right? And maybe you'll fall amongst the sky. A statement like that. But looking back at that, I can now say that that is a product of his experience. And I did right by not taking that up. In fact, I'm the type of stubborn personality and attitude that when you say I can't do something, that's when I'm motivated to do something. And so I think we also need to find our passions. Congregation, in Xhosa they say bazalwane. If you don't want to do this, don't do it. Go find something you are passionate about. But if you are passionate about this, find what makes it work for you. There are tons of resources out there. There's just one Google click away. I promise you, you can just go and say, what is in a bubble, right? For intermediate phase teaching. And you'll find so many different kitchen top ideas, not a Bunsen burner, kitchen top ideas things that kids can find in their kitchen. They can go home and tell their parents, look at this, this is what's in a bubble. We had a drive home one day, and my sister's daughter, she was younger at the time, pointed to a tree and she was like, Buta, your research. And she was so excited because she had seen I had went to go and pick plants to take to the lab to do. And that is what makes a connection. So find that passion. Let me not digress, colleagues. Thank you.
The final comment, yes, the rhetoric around this needs to change, and the language around what we are doing needs to change. We need to start using more positive words and have a more positive spin around it. So we need to design the rhetoric so it supports the objectives of this community.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes.
I might be biased. I just want to find out from the universities, there are PhD papers that are written. Are they accessible to the public, whereby like the paper attention is all you need, and then like the Bitcoin white paper, whereby people can access them and then start to do things, solving community problems immediately. I know that there is a process of university line, but then there are other people who are not directly in the PhD line, but who can solve things practically in life. So if ever there is that route to connect, and then we solve problems.
Okay.
Yes.
There's only one answer to that question, and I'll answer for all three of us. The answer is yes. All master's and doctoral dissertations are available online at universities through their digital repositories. We have a digital repository. UJ has a digital repository. Every South African university has a digital repository. You just go to Google and you search and you will find it.
Thank you very much. On that note, let's give our panelists a round of applause.
It is 2 eyes.
I didn't see
So when your brain goes here, right? At the bottom, right? Those are